Montel Williams. For 17 unbroken years, he served as the steady voice that millions of Americans relied on when the weight of the world felt impossible to carry alone. As the host of one of the most decorated and respected daytime television programs in the history of broadcasting, he brought a level of sincerity and depth that stood out in a crowded media landscape. A decorated United States Navy officer who dedicated 22 years of his life to serving his country with distinction, his name grew to represent honesty, unwavering service, and a fierce determination never to be silenced even when facing immense pressure. At the peak of his career, the show reached well over 20 million households across more than 170 countries around the world. This success positioned him as one of the most recognizable faces in American television and one of the most trusted public figures for an entire generation, hungry for authentic conversations and real solutions. Yet behind the carefully maintained public image of polished suits, bright studio lights, earned medals, and a seemingly unstoppable mission, there existed a far more private and devastating battlefield that no audience ever fully witnessed. It was a story filled with a childhood marked by emotional challenges and high expectations that were rarely spoken about openly, marriages that faced enormous strain under the relentless demands of fame and constant public scrutiny, a body that was gradually betrayed by a merciless neurological disease capable of robbing him of his mobility, his voice, and the very sense of self he had spent decades forging through discipline and hard work, and a financial collapse so thorough that it dismantled much of the empire he had carefully constructed dollar by dollar and year by year through dedication and opportunity. Montel Williams remains living proof that the most significant battles in life are rarely fought under bright lights or with cheering crowds. Instead, they unfold in silence, during late nights of uncertainty, and in the quiet hours when all external validation has disappeared. If Montel Williams has ever delivered a message, a piece of advice, or a moment of honesty that found you precisely when you needed it most, consider leaving a like as a quiet tribute to a man who willingly shared his voice and nearly sacrificed his physical well-being so that countless others might find the strength not to suffer in isolation. It remains a quietly profound truth that the origins of this remarkable life were defined not by ease or privilege, but by the cold, unyielding discipline of an environment that demanded constant performance and offered very little softness in return. Montel Brian Anthony Williams entered the world on July 3, 1956, in Baltimore, Maryland, a city known for its complex blend of toughness on the surface and deep underlying pride in its people. His father, Herman Williams, embodied the values of a different era. As a dedicated city employee who eventually rose through the ranks to become Baltimore's fire chief, Herman approached life with strict authority. Warmth and praise were not given freely, but earned through results, and anything falling short of excellence often led to serious, direct conversations that left lasting impressions. His mother, Marjorie, brought a different kind of presence into the home, offering steadier emotional support and understanding during the times when the weight of expectations felt heaviest on a growing boy. As the second of 4 siblings, Montel quickly learned that his role in the family involved showing up with consistent effort and resilience. School presented its own set of challenges, but rather than excelling effortlessly, he pushed forward through pure determination and a refusal to quit. By the time he reached his early teenage years, he had already cultivated an intense inner drive to prove his worth, not primarily for external approval, but to quiet the persistent doubts within himself. That internal voice, familiar to many raised under strict standards, would follow him throughout adulthood, later expressing itself through the pursuit of higher ranks, stronger ratings, greater financial success, and broader public recognition. It was during his high school years that Montel first encountered the path that would define the following 2 decades of his existence. Motivated by a mix of purpose and practical need, He entered the United States Naval Academy Preparatory Program and eventually the Naval Academy in Annapolis. He was never the most naturally talented cadet in every area, but he compensated with remarkable endurance and focus. He met every physical test, academic requirement, and social hurdle placed before him as a young black man navigating an institution that was still evolving. In 1980, he graduated with a degree in general engineering and received his commission as an officer. He initially served in the Marine Corps before transitioning to the Navy, ultimately completing a total of 22 years of service. During that time, he earned certification as a cryptologist and became one of the pioneering black officers in several demanding specialized positions, all while building a record of quiet excellence amid occasional resistance. Long before any public fame or recognition arrived, before the medals accumulated, or the moment when television producers saw untapped potential, there was simply the determined young man from Baltimore. He carried in the set of his shoulders and the depth in his eyes the early foundations of a resilience that no amount of external pressure had managed to break. The strict discipline instilled during childhood had not destroyed his spirit. Instead, it had forged him into someone capable of handling far greater challenges ahead. Deep within those formative years, the character of the man who would one day address millions without flinching was already being quietly shaped and strengthened. The transition from a decorated military officer to a nationally syndicated television host represents a profound shift that most people would never dare to attempt. The distance between the structured world of military protocol and the unpredictable realm of daily television charisma is not merely professional, but deeply personal and existential. For Montel Williams, successfully crossing that divide required more than courage. It demanded a particular kind of bold self-belief that comes from having already proven oneself in demanding environments. While still actively serving in the Navy during the late 1980s, he began delivering powerful public speeches on drug awareness and support for at-risk young people. These talks stemmed from genuine concern rather than any calculated career move. He spoke at schools, community centers, and military bases, bringing a rare combination of authoritative presence and emotional authenticity that stood out sharply against rehearsed performances. Word of his impact spread quickly. In 1991, after a television producer witnessed one of his presentations and recognized something undeniably real in his delivery, conversations turned into opportunities, and soon the Montel Williams Show premiered on a national stage. The audience response was immediate and powerful. At a time when much of daytime television relied heavily on sensational confrontation, Montel chose a different approach. He created room for genuine dialogue. He listened attentively to guests, challenged ideas without resorting to humiliation, and held space for difficult stories involving veterans returning from service with invisible wounds, families battling addiction, and young individuals trapped in systems not designed for their success. He insisted on treating people with dignity rather than reducing their experiences to entertainment. He later reflected that his goal was never simply to host a talk show, but to finish important conversations that society too often left unfinished. That commitment resonated deeply. The program earned its first Daytime Emmy Award in the mid-1990s, along with multiple nominations over the years. It built a dedicated following and maintained strong ratings for many seasons. Montel expanded his efforts by creating a production company, pursuing a successful motivational speaking career, and using his growing platform to influence policy on veterans' health care and broader social matters. He appeared before Congress and worked to bring attention to issues affecting those without powerful advocates. Financial rewards followed, allowing him to build a lifestyle that reflected years of disciplined effort, including notable residences in major cities. Throughout this period of public achievement, an underlying discipline remained largely invisible to viewers. He maintained rigorous morning routines, consistent physical training rooted in his military background, and an unwavering commitment to showing up fully each day. These habits provided structure even as his world grew larger and more demanding. Fame, however, often extracts a hidden price from personal relationships. Montel has experienced 3 marriages, each shaped by the intense pace of his professional life. His first union came during his early Navy years and brought 2 children into his life. Later relationships faced the challenges of expanding fame, unpredictable schedules, and the emotional distance that can develop when so much energy flows outward to millions, while the people closest to home sometimes receive less. He has spoken with candor and regret about these dynamics, acknowledging that the drive which made him exceptional on stage sometimes made ordinary family life more difficult to sustain. The third marriage arrived during a period already complicated by health concerns, and while it brought moments of partnership and the birth of another child, it too navigated significant pressures.